I've never done anything like this before in my life. I'm not sure if it's going to be popular or not, but I think there are enough people out there who may want to know about what it is like to be transgender in Thailand. So here goes nothing. My name is anonymous. I am transgender. I was assigned male at birth, but I identify as female. It was a really long process, and I think that it's very different for everyone. You can get a sex reassignment surgery in Bangkok for around 10,000 USD. That's a pretty good deal compared to other countries. However, I personally do not plan to get surgery, because it is a really big decision and I am still figuring things out about myself. I take hormones right now and I love that I can find them here easily. This is because most trans people here are sex workers and they are not really looking for friends. I think that finding a therapist who understands transgender issues is really important, especially when you're first coming out. It's nice to have someone who you can talk to about what you're going through. You just have to decide whether the pros outweigh the cons. I think that Thailand is a great place to transition because it is cheap and there are a lot of resources available. I think that no matter where you are in the world, being transgender is hard because we are constantly fighting for our rights. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I make weekly videos about my life here in Thailand. So if you're interested in learning more about what it's like to be transgender here, then be sure to check them out. Thank you again for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye. We are constantly having to educate other people on transgender issues, and we are constantly having to deal with people who don't accept us. But I think that no matter where you are in the world, it is also really beautiful because there are so many accepting people out there, and there are so many people who want to help us. There are so many people who are fighting for our rights, and there are so many people who accept us for who we are. So I think that no matter where you are in the world, there is hope. But I think it's important to learn the language beforehand, so that you can navigate things easier. I think that knowing Thai is super important. You'll be able to get around and access things that you need much easier. Also, I think it is important to be prepared for stares and comments from strangers because that is just part of living here. I think it's best to just ignore them or respond with a smile. For me, I love living here. I love the fact that I can buy hormones without a prescription. I love the tropical weather, and I love the delicious food. So for me, it's definitely worth it. But of course I do miss home sometimes. I miss my family and friends, and I also miss the fact that I can find better healthcare there. But unfortunately, I think that most therapists here are not trained on transgender issues. I tried going to a couple of appointments, and I couldn't really relate to what they were saying because they were giving me advice on how to transition that was not accurate. So I stopped going after a while. I'm hoping that in the future more mental health professionals will be educated on transgender issues. But until then, I think it's better to find someone online. So it took me a while to find people who wanted to be friends with me, because I didn't want to be a sex worker. I think it's really important to have friends who understand what you're going through. So if you're transgender here, it might take you a little bit longer to find your people. But if you try and put yourself out there, then I'm sure you will find them. Hormones have definitely helped me become more comfortable in my body. I knew that I was different ever since I can remember. Sometimes I feel like I do want to fit in with the average Thai person, and I also do want to fit in with the average American. It's kind of hard to explain. I mean, I can speak the language and I can understand the culture, but I don't know. Maybe it is because I am lighter skinned that people assume that I am American and they do not really want to talk to me in Thai. Or maybe it's because I look obviously transgender that people are uncomfortable around me. Either way, I feel quite isolated sometimes. So if you're transgender here and you're struggling with that, please reach out to someone online. You're not alone. There are a lot of similarities between the two countries, but also a lot of differences. Obviously, the language barrier is really big. Here in Thailand, I've had quite a few experiences where people were uncomfortable around me, or they asked me inappropriate questions. I was really young when I came out, so I was still figuring myself out and I didn't know how to respond to people. Now I am a lot more comfortable with who I am, and I could definitely hold my own in conversations about being transgender. I still don't think that the average Thai person is very educated on transgender issues. Many people here are uncomfortable with anything that's outside of the norm, but I'm glad that more and more people are becoming more open-minded. And if you don't speak Thai, it's going to be hard to navigate certain things. But I think that as long as you learn the language and you educate yourself about what steps to take, then it's pretty easy. If you speak the language, then you will know that people here are extremely blunt. They don't really care to sugarcoat things. So sometimes they might ask you questions about your genitals and stuff like that. But I think that if you take it in stride and you answer them, then they won't bother you anymore. I just always felt like I was a girl, trapped in a boy's body. It took me a while to understand what that meant. but eventually, I learned that it's called being transgender. When I was younger, I didn't really know any trans people, so I really struggled with it by myself. I didn't come out until I was 19, because I was just afraid of what other people would think. And it's still scary now, but I think that it's important to do what makes you happy, even if other people don't approve. I think that if you're re-struggling with your gender identity and you feel like you need to come out, you should do it. Of course, you should only come out when you feel safe to do so, because that's really important. But I think that if you struggle with this stuff for long enough, it's going to catch up to you mentally and physically. So I definitely recommend coming out when you feel ready. I came out when I was 19 years old, and I am currently 23. I have been living full-time as a woman for almost 4 years now, but I think that any country that you're from, being transgender is pretty similar. There are struggles that we face wherever we are in the world. So, I am going to go over some of those struggles and also some of the positives to being transgender here. And I am here today to talk to you guys about what it is like to be trans in Thailand. I know that a lot of people from the US specifically are really interested in what it is like to be trans in different countries. So first of all, how did I come to terms with my gender identity? Here in Thailand, it's actually fairly easy to get gender confirmation surgery. That's why many people from other countries come here to get their surgeries. Coming back to the US, I think that being transgender here is similar to being transgender there. I've lived in both Thailand and the US, and I can say that I do think Americans are more accepting of transgender people than Thais are. When I first came out here in Thailand, it was very difficult to find transgender friends. As I said earlier, it is easy to access hormones and gender confirmation surgery here, but it is much more difficult to access mental health care. I also think that being transgender here can be quite isolating. Overall, I think that being transgender here has its pros and cons, just like anywhere else. If you're considering moving here to transition, I would definitely say do it. Being transgender in Thailand is not so different from being transgender in other parts of the world. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you liked it.